Hey everyone, my name is Joshua Escobar, and I'm here to present you with a few creative writing exercises. I first gave out these exercises at the Poetry Project as part of the discourse series on Utopia and Dystopia, and I'm here to present them again as part of the Poetry Project's marathon reading. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope that these are productive for you. All right, so the first exercise, you'll want some pen and paper, of course, or colored pencils if you have them. And what I would like you to do is to visualize a poem. So pick a poem, any poem. As you read, I'd like you to draw as you read, or in response to your reading, or even as a way of listening. And you can play with line weight, pattern, and color, and just draw as you read. This is kind of an unusual exercise, but I like it because it allows us to engage the process immediately. And I developed this very simple exercise when I was working on my first manuscript, and I was feeling burnt out towards the end of it, and I just needed something to get the juices flowing. And so I produced all of these drawings, none of which were very great, but the best one you see on the screen now on the left. And I was like, what if I had like a line of poetry that was like blue, or like serious, or, blue, like, and then it was followed by like a yellow line. And then it was followed by a red line that was like messy and energetic, but the yellow lines were like, you get the point. And so it was a really cool way to think about form, and it led to the poem that you see on the right. So this exercise goes both ways. So pick a poem, any poem, and start visualizing it. And as you work, I'm going to present a little lecture on utopia and dystopia. All right, and this is a shortened talk from the one I gave at the Poetry Project a few weeks back. And it imagines utopia as a neighborhood celebration, this first part. Just to give you a quick definition, utopia is like an idealized way of living, or the project of imagining that way of living. And it's exciting because that effort can be short-lived or have full of shortcomings, but it is also like realizing a beautiful version, or participating in what's most beautiful in life. So I like thinking of utopia as like on a small scale, as a neighborhood celebration. And this line of thinking comes from Chris Marker's Sans Soleil. He talks about like politics at one point in this French film. And this French filmmaker, and he visits one of the cities that America bombed in World War II, a city that people said nothing would ever grow again. And he looks at like how it's just like rapidly creating the future and bridging the present with the future, and dwelling in both. And he has this beautiful line, I bow to the economic miracle, but what I want to show you are the neighborhood celebrations. And I encourage you to watch the film if you have time. And an example of utopia as a neighborhood celebration actually comes from Nicole Seeley's Instagram. She had this wonderful post about the joy to the polls, but she has since updated her Instagram. So I found a video of it online. But just thinking of like utopia is not necessarily this like lofty thing that is only accessible by a few, but can be manifested and realized. So this organization called Joy to the Polls set up DJ booths and live and music at different polling places. In our most recent election that many people thought would result in violence, and especially against people of color who are at the ballot boxes. And so I really like thinking about Joy to the Polls and creating kind of this utopian space and experience of voting in a very dystopian moment in in our country's history. All right, so utopia can be a place, but it also can be an effort. And this effort you can trace back to this line of thinking to Henry Lefebvre, who was this French philosopher who wrote in 1867, not 1967, as the PowerPoint says, but 1867, that just by inhabiting a city, you have the right to change it. You have the right, you have a say in what happens in the city and how the city works, even. And he called that the right to the city. And very exciting thinker. Another way of thinking about utopia and utopian effort is through the wonderful artist Bushra Khalili. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce that. I'm monolingual and I'm bound to do that all the time. But she writes this, she makes really amazing art. Many of you are probably very familiar with it, but she traces the journey of immigrants who are trying to attain citizenship in the very countries that are attacking them and working against them. And she charts their lives, their journeys with these maps. And it's just I think it's a really wonderful inversion of the colonial map that's imprinted on all of our imaginations. And utopian effort, how could you not talk about Colleen Smith's current exhibition at the LACMA, which is called Give It or Leave It, which brings together different filmmakers, Black filmmakers who are working in the 20th century, who were working decades apart from each other, and she brings them, but they were all kind of thinking about utopia and documenting utopia, and she brings them all together in this exhibit, you know, and just on the sole basis of that they should all be together in the same room in conversation, and that they are in conversation with each other, and that they're thinking about utopia. I highly encourage you to go see it, and I could talk about this all day. So we talked previously about utopia, and now I want to kind of take a turn and talk about dystopia. And my students actually put together a wonderful project one semester about utopia and dystopia, and I asked them to go document the Inland Empire, where I was born and raised, which is this region east of Los Angeles. And it has kind of the same relationship to Los Angeles as New Jersey does to New York. It's kind of, the Inland Empire is seen, it's like the twisted sister or the misshapen offspring. You know, it's the center. LA is the center of everything, and the Inland Empire is the periphery. And so I asked them to take pictures of it, and we weren't going to label it if it was utopia or dystopia. And so they put together this really wonderful collection. And so some people would see these images and think, oh my God, that's dystopia. You know, that's the desert and people are living in it and horrible. And then other people, it's like, this is my home. Like, I love it here. It's gorgeous. And, you know, one image that I always come back to is this image on the left, you know, of this being like someone's home, you know, and it's like this, you see like an overturned bucket and there's trash by it, and even further there's like the trash, the scale of it increases, and then you see a mobile home or a trailer, and it's like it's someone's home, like someone lives in all of this. And then on the right, you see like these people think this is like this really great like light up exhibit, but for me, it just looks like completely dystopian. And so the conclusion that we came to was that utopia and dystopia can be mapped on top of each other. Or the thesis that we came to was that dystopia and utopia can be mapped on top of each other. And I thought that's really interesting for a number of reasons, but I think it really gets to what is exciting about utopian thinking, and then what is like dangerous about utopian thinking. If it's all thought, you know, it's not supposed to be all thought. You're supposed to put it into practice. And so that's exactly what we're going to do with this next exercise. So for your first exercise, you drew a map of utopia and of your utopia. And now for the second exercise, I would like us to think about how we can travel to that utopia. So for the first exercise, that visual drawing of the visualizing a poem is of your utopia, or of a utopia, or it could be a dystopia, whatever you want. But for the second exercise, I would like you to write a haiku and a prose passage that describes the journey to that utopia. And this haiku, and this form is called the haibun, and it was practiced a lot in the 17th century in Japan. This example comes from Basho. And Basho was known and is often touted as a haiku master. And I got this lesson and came across Basho through C.S. Giscombe. So what do you need to make a haibun? Well, you need a haiku and a prose passage. So the prose passage should describe like the journey and movement and the thoughts. And then the haiku can also just is a time in which you want that journey to either loosen in meaning or clot in meaning, to complicate or highlight, you know, loosen or clot. Those are the metaphors that were given to me by C.S. Giscombe. But yeah, so here we have, on the left, we have an example. It talks about Basho beginning this journey, which begins his wonderful book of haibuns, of these travel poems. And for the prose passage, it doesn't have to be anything special. You can use your own voice, your everyday voice. But for the haiku, you're really going to want to elevate it through somehow, even by loosening the meaning or clotting the meaning. And just to give you a really quick rundown of the haiku, a haiku has 3 things. It has 17 syllables or less. So it doesn't need to always have 575. It can have less. Less is better. It has an image, which is like in the haiku on the right, we see the grass turning into a doll's household, like the seasons changing. In that image, and then the third one is, of course, a seasonal reference, and it could be a footnote. It could be oblique or subtle or overt, like the grass changing. And so this is your second prompt of imagining going to the place that you drew on your map. All right, and so that's the second prompt, second of 3. And, you know, take as long as you want for this. You can turn it into a whole book of haibuns, as Basho did in his wonderful book, Backroads to Far Towns, which I encourage you all to read. In fact, when I was assigned this book in C.S. Giscombe's class, by the end of reading this book, I knew that I wanted to become a poet. This was the book by a non-living poet that made me want to become a poet. And so this, just in the interest of time, I want to present you with the last creative writing exercise, which is the scavenger hunt. So like the first exercise, it was you worked with the visual arts, you made a map, you dabbled in it a little bit. The second asked you to produce a travel log, a haiku, a mixture of prose and poetry, a mixture of you documenting a journey or articulating a journey, and um, and then having a haiku. And for this third exercise, it's going to involve you getting up a little bit and getting lost in your own house. So what I would like you to do is to find two objects that are not related to one another and then to put them in conversation in the poem. And so after you find each object, I would like you to think about the syntax and language and associations with that object. And then I would like you to develop a new bond or relationship beyond use, possession, or consumption to that object. And so this is a little, just find cool stuff in your house. We all have it. And one of the poets when I did this workshop a couple weeks ago, they found a hand that was like off of a marble statue that they use as like to hold their keys, and it had been with them for 10 years. And I just love that. It's like, it's so, the relationships that we have to things are just so uncanny of how we live. Even it's like the objects, some of the objects that we're surrounded by, they travel with us our whole lives, and some of them are even closer than we are to people that we know and love. And so this is, this scavenger hunt is very much in the spirit of making the near and making the near dear again, or realizing utopia as something in close proximity to us, or those possibilities, are always there. All right, so for this last exercise, just find two objects that are dissimilar and write a poem about them. And think about the language and syntax associated with each object. And try not to think about it as like a use, something you own or something you use or something you consume. One poet wrote about like an avocado and a chin strap or chin that her mom bought her. And I might write about piñatas and sunglasses. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I hope you were able to produce some really wonderful poems, and have a wonderful 2021, y'all.
Triptych. Forward. This morning, tucked under the windshield wiper, there was a short tract of 5 yellow leaves left me by the fall. 1. The river. They say that there is no tide at Albany, but as I sit here in an empty Beverwick Park at the Boat Dock Amphitheater, alone and lonely, isolated and distant, the detritus of fall floats by, moving distinctly and determinedly toward Troy. 1. Cricket chirps among the yellow leaves of a spent grapevine beyond a fence that separates me from the pale magenta, orange, gray, and yellow water rippling below. 3. Night thoughts. Twilight envelopes what ever remains of the day, obscuring everything, reminding us that we as individuals are utterly insignificant, and that the only lasting impact we can have in this world is one in which we alter and destroy it. Thank you.
Min kat lefty. Den gale svarte katten min väcker mig upp klockan 1 och 2 och 3 och 4 och 5. Den kärliga katten min kysser mig vardag klockan 1 och 2 och 3 och 4 och 5. Den sultana katten min spiser klockan 1 och 2 och 3 och 4 och 5. Den kämpestora katten min blir icke stora klockan 1. Han blir stora och stora hela tiden. So that's the first poem that I wrote in Norwegian. And I'm going to tell you what it means, and then I'll recite it again so that you'll see how much you can understand as I speak Norwegian. So it says, my crazy black cat, Lefty, min cat Lefty, my cat Lefty, my crazy black cat wakes me up every day at klockan 1, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3, 4, 5. My loving cat kisses me all day at klockan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My hungry, starving cat eats and eats 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. My giant cat doesn't get bigger at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. He gets bigger all the time. So, min kat Lefty. Look, sweetie. Min kat Lefty. Den gale svarte katten min väcker mig upp klockan 1 och 2 och 3 och 4 och 5. Den kärliga katten min kysser mig vardag klockan 1 och 2 och 3 och 4 och 5. Den sultana katten min spiser klockan 1 och 2 och 3 och 4 och 5. Den kämpestora katten min blir icke stora klockan 1. Han blir stora och stora hela tiden. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope 2021 is a lot better than 2020. Yep.
That was it? I don't believe it. Wait a minute. I thought I just recorded this whole thing. Okay, start over. I was over here. I was by the printer. I was picking the paper out of the printer. Now, oh yeah, you can't even do certain things that I was doing, can you? Like, I don't know, going back and forth. Information. This is called, just another day. Information continues to pour in day to day, hour to hour. Minutes are largely eclipsed by the arrival of new information and interpretations already received and processed repeatedly, while I feel obliged to keep my face on screen as long as I can, just to be civil, at conferences, committee meetings, and informal but crucial, potentially consequential conversations that may be a lot harder for other people than they are for me to get involved in and to organize and put all the work into it. I mean, after all, I don't know what goes into it, really. And then to shift to stimuli and resources that I have online and in books and magazines and printouts that I've made to read longer texts that, without, this kind of engorgement with the pixels and whatever kind of light. What is this, transformation of electricity into a visual torrent, a flood of overwhelming stepping on things. I'm never going to understand it. Okay, fine. Well, what was I saying? Yeah, whatever it's made of, how this information is transferred, only possibly to understand my choices or enabling and enacting some responsibility for whatever it tells me about my relations with the world of life. Of all sorts, more than ever inaccessible to me, to my body, my attentive mind, in adjustment to our collective needs for safety. Short-term in this still mounting pandemic, never mind global warming, worldwide pollution, nuclear arms proliferation, and warmongering to ensure my leaders' short-term profits every day, every possible day, long-term, short-term. And who am I to complain? Who am I? And who am I to complain to? I agree. Complaining doesn't do much good, especially if no one is listening but myself. And I have it easy. Aside from many other privileges and advantages, and social of my material and social situations, I have things to do that I can believe worthwhile and socially constructive. Caring, witnessing, connecting. So never mind me. How about you?
Hey, so this goes out to the about-to-be former resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, with a slight apology to Rodgers and Hammerstein. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, good night. It's time to go, for Trump we must indict. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu, adieu to Trump and Pence and Kushner too. So long, farewell, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. You're fired, for you this is the end. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. So just leave, I'll even say goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, Donald. Happy New Year, everybody. Long live the Poetry Project.
A change is going to come. Signages of the day. New York City, 2020, April, May, June. Sorry, we're dead. Employees must carve Slayer into forearm before returning to work. Why are you holding on? Embleach him. You're a mess. Pretend you like it. You bet your ass. You are not a beautiful and unique snowflake. Wish you were closer. If looks could kill, I'd be dead. There is no start date to activism. Warning, fascism. Kill for peace. Find the perfect roommate. If you can read this, thank a teacher. Happy warrior playground closed. Enjoy your forgiveness. It's okay to look. This is only temporary. Realistic goal setting. We can't breathe. Cherry bomb, cherry bomb, cherry bomb, cherry bomb, cherry bomb, cherry bomb, cherry bombs, cherry bombs, cherry bombs. Take a knee. Where is my safe place? This was your life. White silence equals death. Make racists afraid again. Say their names. Silence is consent. No justice, no peace, no more race war. Respect existence or expect resistance. Rage never dead. All I want is everything. As comment, you can't have. A woman's place is in the revolution. Option A. Fire. Oink. Zip gun. Superglued. You are responsible for your own orgasm. I did not expect to be giving up this much for Lent. Full frontal. We are not your scapegoat. I am everywhere. Lounge division. Occupy a job on Wall Street. Auto, how? Thou shalt not mama alone. Woof! No idling. I miss Chinese food. Don't forget the dollar signs. A bad day in New York City is still better than a good day anywhere else. Be snaxified. Does Bruce Springsteen dye his hair? WTF is going on? Senior care. Another one bites the dust. Worth it? Send nudes. America, stop murdering your people. 99%. Fuck racism. Protect your heart. Inmigrantes y refugiados, bienvenidos. No time to die. H2OO, ooh. Together, we can do anything. If those ovaries could talk, a hell of a joint. Ready, willing, and able. Donut, judge me. Quote, do lovers love? Why then to heaven with hell. Whatever sages say and fools, all's well. Want free pizza. Mondo porco. Rabbit hole. Crackhead Jesus is coming. Nobody said everything was going to be interesting. Sugaring. Grand collapse. Kiss here. Shut up. Your complicity. Enough. We sell soul. You must play the game. Never hide. Never postpone fun. Unauthorized removal prohibited. We are still alive. Age is only a number, and mine is unlisted. You are not special. Am I next? A change is going to come.
Landmine Spring. It's a blood-red map, says my chicken scratch and agita, a beginning circle. Charts rip, Jeff said sarcastic, mostly sending missives of grocery lists, not manifestos. Art ain't shit, it's just those stories. Just desserts is just as important. A pie in the face of an orange juice magnate. The origin tale is racist off the dais, and a dripping fake man. To think that the Pope closed Easter. Corona. Holy Mary, what a beautiful name. Love a leper like St. Francis. Fall in a field of everyone's sprouted seedlings, poppies praying. Love a future. Love a satyr too. Zoom satyr. Little bitter arguments snapping for no reason. Numbers tallied on the wall of days, nights, of sirens. Touched nothing and no one. Jeff said heresy, and we shared a smile separately. Saying this is fine, but burning. Saying anything you think that would make you feel at home. Funny, I never have. Running away at 4 miles a day, panting into my own face, I'm faced with that. So in haste, grabbing tiny tchotchkes, little impracticalities, inherently meaningless but nonetheless calming, leave my hometown, my whole heart. For the dispossessed, home means love and work with those we shelter with and who we shoulder with. 6 feet apart in a 3-family, 3-bedroom apartment. Real talk, there are some people I'm glad didn't live to see this. There are plenty more I didn't know I cared for. God bless. Taboo juices left spent. Used to believe in creation. Not sure if my attention span burned out. Clicking refresh. Test myself by spelling out television. We've got all the time in the world. Future tripping suspicious. Or is it serendipitous just because now I listen like the NSA? The first rule is to never relinquish. Stand on the corner outside. It's beautiful. The mask on, block up, and a placard. It's beautiful. Reading the same gray slate box for a month. Commitment is key. Those we love are everyone. At another time we might have laughed. Love split up, or even as libido. Sending piss pictures to strangers is one way to cope. Do we spread ourselves? Do we sow wild oats in fear, leaving something behind us desperately? Watching old baseball reruns for a sense of normalcy. Think a pandemic if you're offended. Never content, egged on, restless with nowhere to run. Mad seems so long ago and so petty. Some of us have always been ready. Everyone's had to fight to be free. Felt, shower curtain, coffee filter, a napkin, old t-shirt, a bra, and a vacuum sack. Feels like a spell we know is hollow. Sourdough, soup, knitting, a poem, tarot, reading the tea rings left on unwashed cups, a beautiful pink supermoon I didn't see. You're grasping at the sky with both hands, Jeff joked, begging something to make sense, and capitalism ain't it. Any cure right now is snake oil, statist. Community aid can only bridge a gap. Yellow-bellied light in the midst in the world, and very much of it primordial, gather and disperse. Algorithmic arguments with internet idiots, mea culpa, I'm on there too much. No dolphins will return to grease-slicked Newtown Creek pet. So I ooze back out in a cloud post-Passover, Easter, raining an extra hour. The fog off the water simply baffling, like Sandy, like ashes raining, a forehead anointed like total fiscal collapse, an economic nap. Material lessons from utter destruction, and you were there, and you.
Since way back when? Way back in the last century, in 1992 when I was a mere 50, I slipped in between the clean sheets of my bed and sighed, thank you, as I always do. So grateful to not be sleeping in the back seat of my 56 Pontiac on Mount Rainier in 64, or in the airport lounge overnight in Puerto Rico in 1974, or in the cheap and rundown open all-night movie house on Skid Row in Spokane in 1964, or in the Dry Fountain in Washington Square in 1959, when the buses would wake us teenage beats as they drove through the arch to turn around and head back uptown on a Fifth Avenue that wasn't one way yet, or on an upper concrete floor of a half-built office tower in San Francisco when I was AWOL from the military in the summer of '62, or in a tough trans woman's loft in 1973 in Philly, or in a cot or bunk bed in the military in '62 or '3 or '4, or wrapped in winter coats and clothes huddled around a tiny electric heater, lying on the floor with my 2 kids I was raising on my own, because their mother was in a coma that lasted 6 years before she died. And the new landlord of the building in not yet Tribeca, the illegal for living in loft I was renting was in, had quintupled the rent I refused to pay, so was trying to kick us out, and had cut off our heat, to convince me to leave, and me and my kids ended up on 2 different friends' fold-out couches for over 6 months in the Manhattan of 1980. Or me on another friend's floor for several weeks in the Santa Monica of 83, while my kids stayed with my second wife until I could get a place for them and me. Or yet another friend's floor in Iowa City in the fall of 66, or in a patron's Brooklyn Heights apartment in the spring of 66, or on sidewalks and park benches and lawns, or subway seats back in the 1950s when the fare was a dime, or red-eye flights and trains, or passed out drunk or high in the beds of strangers in the DC and NYC of the 1970s, or on the floor of a farmhouse in upstate New York in 1960, owned by the first black farmers I'd ever met, or in a gray 49 Chevy owned by a cohort of black military buddies, one of whom was sleeping in it too, after we failed to find lodgings that would accept us in the segregated city of Atlanta in 1962. We'd gone down there to pick up co-eds at Spelman. Or in a jail cell, or lockdown barracks, or beaches, or so much more to be grateful for not sleeping in or on that made me sigh that thank you, that time in 1992 when I was only 50. And the young, ambitious wannabe Hollywood player who slipped in beside me said, "No wonder you never became the big success people predicted you'd be. It's 'cause you're too easily satisfied, like with just having a bed of your own to sleep in." And playing, I may have added.
Il sortit par la porte de mon immeuble. Je lui dis au revoir. Il voulait fuir le sud et l'amour fragile qui à ce moment-là lui disait au revoir aussi. Il le quitta avec un baiser fort, traînant, humide. Dans leur corps se logeait l'unique endroit chaud au monde, et moi de l'autre côté, j'avais froid. J'étais la spectatrice des adieux des autres, comme j'avais été auparavant la spectatrice de mes propres adieux. Maudite nostalgie pour les bras d'un amour perdu, pour les bras d'une mère. J'ai eu envie de pleurer, de me couper les doigts, de me frapper le ventre, de manger les oignons crus de la cuisine. Et je suis arrivée à des lieux inconnus. J'ai traversé la frontière, les imaginaires éclipsés. Son image est un monument pétrifié sur le côté occipital de mon esprit, un éloge à l'échec, à chaque fois plus vague et fragile. Il a disparu, ou j'ai cessé de le regarder. Je me suis appuyée sous le ciel gris comme quelqu'un qui attend la pluie. Je n'ai pu étancher ma soif sur aucun des champs de bataille. Moi, je n'ai jamais su partir. Je suis toujours restée accolée au cadre de la porte. Si je suis partie, ce n'était pas ma décision. Ils m'ont obligée à quitter les espaces communs et les conversations. à me retrouver dans la recherche sans fin des objets perdus et des pierres précieuses. Comme une enfant qui demande trop, j'ai supplié une poussée, une main divine. Mon instinct sauvage de connaissance dort quelque part dans mon sang, en attente d'être saigné comme le tigre du Bengale que je pensais être, vivant, mais un peu éteint, fort, mais un peu apprivoisé. J'ai pensé à la marée noire sur la côte nord, à la mort lente des mouettes, au sable noir, aux voies noyées par la force du ciel. Les vagues semblaient vouloir ramener le pétrole vers la ville. À mes côtés, les corps immobiles étaient des pierres au milieu de la nuit, résistantes et solitaires. J'ai senti leur peine dans mon sein. Mon dernier amour n'a ni jalousie ni âge. Il est aussi pur que le désastre de la joie, aussi puissant que le premier coup, un cri, aussi ingénu que le mouvement de chaque chose, aussi pur que la peur, comme les ailes d'une mouette, aussi corrompu que ma propre mémoire. Je me souviens de son expression flottante, de son sourire secret, des angles de ses mains. J'allais lui demander ce que ça faisait de revenir là où les bêtes agonisent. Mais je me suis retenue. La lumière du soir a frappé fort, comme si le soleil, dans un mouvement domestique, dramatique, luttait une dernière fois avant de disparaître de notre vision. Peut-être qu'ensemble, on a perdu des millions d'années-lumière.
Upon a time, humans sacrificed trees, cutting evergreens for solstice celebrations, festooned with factory-produced glitter. Wooden pulp wrapped gifts ceremoniously displayed around the dying trunk. After New Year, green carcasses lined the streets, brightly colored papers similarly disposed. This is when people wore animal skins. How naive our ancestors, who believed in limitless forest and eternal fauna. Worshipping consumerism, we squandered nature for the fantasy of virgin birth. Home. When we speak of home, metaphors careen from square footage to familial longing, from real estate envy to a yearning for a room of one's own. In a settler's nation, cities rise upon stolen lands. Homelessness equates those without shelter as less than, those for whom a key unlocks a personal place, somewhere safe. Home, like love, can be elusive, expensive, exhausting, exhilarating, existential. Home as habitat, haven, nomads' respite, nesters' retreat. During the pandemic, where we go to isolate. During sleep, so nightmares can turn to dreams. And lastly, Dear Diary. New York's never coming back. That's not our style. We do not retreat. Always plunge ahead. Yes, with uncertainty. Tarnished about the edges. Leaderless now, but not lost. Fleeing millionaires hoard much heralded tax revenues. Only their money will be missed. Not the hollow hives built upon municipal corruption. One percenters, your retreat will birth a renaissance. True citizens cherish these struggling streets, so please abandon our overcrowded island to those who will reinvent New York, tattered as it may momentarily seem. My hometown survived Spanish flu, polio, AIDS, revolutionary, civil, 2 world wars, and terrorist attack. The one direction that New York City never goes is back. Thank you. Happy New Year. Buon anno.
Dead warbler on the wood pile, dead falcon in the bar, dead sparrow on the sidewalk, dead eastern meadowlark, dead grackle on the prairie, dead thrasher on the trail, dead finches in the backyard, dead California rail. The birds, 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 the birds. Goodbye to the wood thrush. Goodbye, nightingale. Farewell, red-winged blackbird and the bob-white quail. Goodbye, ruddy turnstone. Goodbye, oriole. Farewell to the scrub jay and the black-capped vireo. The birds, 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 the birds. Dead stellar's hider, dark-eyed junco. Akikiki in the islands and the bank swallow. The birds, 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 the birds. Birds, the 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 birds. Goodbye to the sage grouse, black-capped chickadee. So long, sheer waters. Goodbye, you and me. The birds, 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 the birds. The birds, 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 the birds,